Welcome back to the SG Weekly Talk Show. If you joined us a few seconds earlier with a little Facebook mishap of preview of not being live, but actually being live, welcome to the show officially. Been a bit of a hiatus here, several weeks, if not a few months, where we haven't gone live, just digging in with the SimpleGrowth team. And we've been working on our new company, Simple Estimate, as you kind of see behind me here. But we're getting back in a weekly cadence, and I couldn't think of anybody better to get live on the show for the first time. Alec Overett. Alec, appreciate you joining me. I know you've been part of the Simple Growth Mastermind. You're one of our 7-figure certified coaches for our Scale Plus group, and been doing a whole lot to really help the lawn care industry as well as the Simple Growth community. Quick intro, if people haven't met you yet, I know you're really starting to make some major waves in our community. I can't thank you enough, but owner and CEO at Turf Kings, and also the owner of Precision Cuts Lawn Care. So if you would kind of breaking down to the audience how you cut your teeth in the green industry and actually what's that journey look like? Because it's usually a pretty interesting scenario. I know our kids' career day, I just did a video, and I can tell you, I didn't really set out when I was in 6th or 7th grade to end up owning a lawn care company. And well, here we are.
Yeah, fair enough. Honestly, I started like a lot of other people, just like a mower in the neighborhood as a child. I actually grew up in Long Beach, and we kind of had a lot of money. And then my parents got divorced, but my mom was like, stay at home. But we lived with my mom when we moved to Indiana. And so all of a sudden we didn't have any money. And so kind of around high school is when I started having to like make money to like buy lunch at school and stuff. So that's, the normal pushing a mower around the neighborhood, mowing lawns. And that's kind of what got me into it. And then after high school, I actually had partnered up with my buddy during high school. And after high school, I was like, you're going to college. I hate school. Like, I really need to actually focus on this because I have nothing else that I have planned. And so I decided to go, full steam ahead with the lawn care thing, and the rest is history.
Love it. Man after my own heart. 5 years of college, and I still hated every single waking hour of it. So
I
very
technically
similar.
did go for 6 weeks. I just didn't go after that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I was pushing a lawnmower around the neighborhood. Pretty blue collar family, crazy work ethic. Parents instilled, and they said, "Hey, if you want a car, you want to get car insurance, you want to do all these things.
Yeah.
You better figure something out." We had that lawnmower in the neighborhood, in the garage, and we
Mhm.
started knocking doors. I
Yep.
know your journey has been really interesting. I've got a few years on you, obviously here, but a young cat, really successful business between the two companies. I know a lot of people think about like, hey, what does it actually look like to own and operate a lawn care and landscape maintenance company? So,
Mhm.
maybe kind of paint a picture of what it looked like in the early days as you kind of took your 6 solid weeks of college and then jumped full tilt into entrepreneurship. How long did it really take to grow this business to where it's at today? Um,
Mm.
and kind of the second half of that, after you kind of paint that picture of what the reality looked like of growing and scaling this business, what does it look like today? Because I know having a little insight into the hours you work and the things you're able to do, I think it would actually make some of the most seasoned veterans a little jealous or an eye opener of, wow, we can have two very successful businesses in a decent size, actually pretty good size,
Mhm.
but we don't have to be a slave to the business. And you definitely own a business. You don't own a job. And that's some of the issues I see with a lot of business owners. They think they've got to be that cog in the wheel that holds it together and be there 24.
Yeah, for sure.
You're a shining example of that is not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, so it started like I said, like everyone else, but like really in the beginning when I want to say like 2017 was kind of my first real year. And just like everyone else, I was just doing anything I could get my hands on as far as service wise. I'm like, I bought a power washer because I thought it was, another service that everyone does. And I was kind of doing everything I could get my hands on. It wasn't till maybe 2019 or 2020 when I kind of ran into like a networking group at the GIE. I was at the show, and I actually learned about Service Autopilot there also. So I kind of signed up for a CRM. I'd been running everything on like QuickBooks and Google Sheets, and I just didn't know that there's all these other people doing the things the right way, so to speak. And I was doing everything the hard way. I mean, literally half my day was just manually entering or invoices into QuickBooks based on the paper sheet route that I gave my guys that day. And so from there I kind of learned a lot about not, I mean, really everything in business in general, but like marketing, just scalability and just learning people, because before that, it's like you're out there with them. You know what I mean? It's different when there's levels, right? And you have to delegate managing to somebody versus actually making sure someone just mows the lawn the right way. It's just so different. And a lot of what I learned through that with scaling and all that kind of stuff was kind of figuring out what are my main favorite services. And that kind of led me to try and dive into the fertilization weed control realm. And we pushed that for 1 year, and we just weren't having a lot of success because, in my opinion, we were branded as this maintenance company. I mean, it's literally Precision Cuts Lawn Care. And it's like, you can't like get rid of mowing and be called Precision Cuts. So instead of rebranding, like, why don't we just start its own company called Turf Kings? And last year was our first full year as Turf Kings, but we created this new brand and it went really well. I think we had 1,300 leads last year, so not bad since we have like pretty much nothing organic wise. But we wanted to separate them, and part of the goal was, okay, if I can have these two separate companies and really focus on Turf Kings and build out what I'm really interested in the most, I could separate the businesses and have this asset of precision cuts that I could, sell or, even just create passive income with if I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. And so that was my ultimate goal with separating versus just, I guess I shouldn't even say separating because we didn't really have much of a business to separate, but more of starting its own, and rather than just selling everything and starting from scratch, or just deleting it. Like, I know some people are just like, I'm done mowing. I just gave all my clients away. And, it took me, I know it doesn't sound like that long in the grand scheme, but it took me 4 or 5 years, maybe 6 years to build that. It was a 7-figure business, and I didn't want to just throw it all away. So that's kind of where the thought process was. And then also just having a new platform for marketing that was truly a fertilization and pest control company.
So there's two things, Alec, that really hit me kind of dead square in the head as we're talking about this. And I know we had some questions we were looking at, but
Yeah.
I think it's worth taking a look at. There's two things you definitely said there. The first one, at a high level, you've got a 7-figure business that you scaled. It took a while to do it, but in the grand scheme of things, that was relatively quick based on the hundreds of businesses we work with a year at SimpleGrowth. But the big thing that rang out to me there is you said asset. And the thing that I guess strikes me, I guess it strikes me a lot and surprises me that most business owners don't think they're actually building an asset. And I got to give credit where credit's due. The OG of lawn care, Jonathan Potoshnik, of the Lawn Care Millionaire, co-founder of Service Autopilot. I think that was the first time that I was ever introduced to the idea that your business, your lawn care business, is actually an asset. And the appreciation of that asset will far outrank any investments you have in the market. And it wasn't really an eye opener until I actually sold the lawn care business myself. But Jonathan was on to something there. And it's interesting that you say that that's an asset. But the reason why it's an asset, I guess, in my opinion, after watching it from the outside of growing that business, is if you were to sell it, you could. But it also could be a turnkey lifestyle business where you've built a team to actually go in and run that business, and it doesn't revolve around you. So,
Yeah.
like, was there anything particular, and may have been by mistake, but is there anything particular you did to build that business into the fact that it was actually an asset? Now you're treating it as such. If we've got a business with a lot of people, our clients coming in at SimpleGrowth, they've got this business, but if they go down, the business falls apart. It's not necessarily, in my opinion, an asset, but it's actually they own a job, not a business. And that seems to be the shift around that $1 million mark. Sometimes it's 3 to 5 million that we see, which is surprisingly, but there seems to be a mindset shift of the business, the CEO, of how they treat and run that business as an asset. So I'm just kind of curious your thoughts. Like, was there a distinctive shift, or was it just something evolved and you said, shit, I got something here, I gotta protect it?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think there are two big things. Probably, accountability / meeting rhythm, and then just systems and processes. And so I think, in the beginning of when you're starting to try and build this team of non-revenue generating staff like office manager, CSR, operations, whatever it is, if you can't retain those employees, it's like it's like a washing machine. You're just going round and round and round. And like every time someone leaves, you're trying to get all that information out of your head back into a new person's head. And so we that happened a few times, and it's painful, right? And it's like, crap, like I trained this guy for like a year and a half and he was really, really good. He knew everything, but he's on to better things, or something happened in his personal life and he's moving, whatever it is, and they leave. And you haven't built any systems or processes around your business. You've built them around this person, and they just know how to do everything. And so kind of realizing that, we started trying to build systems and just really writing SOPs for everything that gets done here. And I feel like the biggest part for me, or the biggest thing that I realized how important that was when I brought on my current office manager about a year ago, and I basically didn't have to train her. Like she did spend a few days with our former office manager because he gave us a notice, and we found her pretty quickly. But we have, a sheet of everything basically that is her job description, and every single thing on that job description has an SOP on how to do it. And it was like, wow, this is this easy, right? Like all of a sudden she has any questions, I'm like, did you check the sheet? And she picked up everything, right? And so building systems and processes so people can easily figure out and train on how to do things in the field as well. And then the other thing I said was accountability, right? And meeting rhythms. Like, I mean, we've talked about Elite a lot. I'm sure you've talked about it on this show. And it's, if people don't know Elite, it's similar to EOS. I'm sure you heard of that. That's something that's been huge for us, is just creating consistent meeting rhythms and not missing a meeting, giving them space in their one-on-ones every week to express any concerns, making sure that every week we're, as a group, as a leadership team, addressing all of our major issues and, our annual priorities for the year, and focusing on working on the business together. And a big part of that has been it, like all of a sudden these people that work for me are all of a sudden working on the business, and it's not just me working on the business anymore. It's like we're all bought in together and we're working on the same mission. And so when you start having other people work on your business with you / for you, it's really exciting, and it feels like a shift.
Wow, I couldn't believe. I mean, I can't agree with you anymore. But I mean, folks, if you're listening to this now, live or recorded, drop some questions or comments in the chat here for Alec and myself if you want. But as far as the questions, but I want to hit on something there. You just unpacked literally 4 or 5 years worth of knowledge in a matter of like 3 minutes. But you mentioned right off the bat self-serving, the elite methodology, and that's the methodology that I actually, in my lawn care company, went out to Phoenix, Arizona, spent about $25,000 to $30,000 learning how to actually take care of shared ownership and how to go to a common set mission with clear, tangible goals. We talk to those as A and B, or as measured by, so everybody knows what success looks like and where we're going. But I guess to add upon that, if you haven't looked at it, whether you use elite methodology that we now teach in the Simple Growth Masterminds, or you're going out to something like EOS, the elite methodology is very, very similar. It's just a little more flexible for a lawn care company that may not be 10 or $12 million in sales. But the ability to really get clear on where the business is going, and to get that leadership team to buy in, and then even all the way down to the technicians in the field, that was a game changer at Callahan's Lawn Care. So if you're listening to this, you're close to $1 million, you've just broke $1 million, or maybe well beyond, but it feels like you're the only one pushing the team and having the ownership of these things. That was a revolutionary thing in my business. Obviously, it seems like you were on your way there, and this may have created some clarity with that. But that was just huge. And I think I was going to ask you, like, what was the biggest challenge to scale your business today? I know, at least in my business, that was the biggest challenge. We didn't have a clearly defined, we had a culture, but it wasn't clearly defined what we stood for, be able to have those core values that we ended up hiring, training, and firing to. But then outside of that, like literally getting the office team and the production managers and everybody aligned to a common goal and working together. And then kind of, at least in my business, this magic happened where I could pull out, but the rest of the team drove towards that objective. And not to put words in your mouth, that sounds like that's kind of what's happening here at Turf Kings and Precision Cuts Lawn Care, is you're able to like have a leadership team that drives these objectives without you having to crack the whip.
Yeah, I do. And it's really cool. Like I still come in here every day pretty much. I mean, I travel a lot, but when I'm in town, I usually come in for the day because I got nothing better to do. And like kind of cool, like having to figure out what I need to work on because I don't have any daily tasks, so to speak. And so I get to figure out what kind of, if my people need help with something, sure, but just kind of figuring out what is going to move the needle today. And if that's helping out with building some new marketing material or automations or something like that, or just helping with my production manager build out a new asset management system, just whatever it is. It's fun because they kind of, they could kind of roll without me. They don't need me, and they'll tell you to your face.
That may be the most unsettling thing. Like,
Yeah.
hey, business owner, get out of the way. We've got this. You're
Yeah.
actually making our day harder. So I can
About an
totally.
hour ago, Portia basically just said she runs this company and she doesn't need me. So
That's huge. Want a big shout out to Kyle Harkey watching here live as well, member of the Masterminds group, tuning in. But
like,
so Alec, with this extra time, I know I've seen you on the road, and the thought to a business owner of a cell-free phone vacation or a cell phone-free business trip or masterminds trip or trip to GIE and not being on your phone and fighting fires seems unobtainable.
yeah.
But I've seen it in person, and I'm not just saying it. I mean, you're not dealing with business when you're on the road. You're on the road doing vacations. What is your typical, like, if you're in town, what's a typical work week look like far as hours? I know you got some pretty cool hobbies between golf and pickleball. Like, how much time can
Yeah.
you spend with that? And
Yeah.
then based on like vacations and literally just leaving that town, like, what are the gaps of time that you're able to leave and literally have this businesses run without you?
Yeah. So kind of funny, because it's just weird that it's pickleball, but I'm playing in a pro qualifier in May. So
There's such a thing for pro
yeah,
pickleball. All right.
yeah.
I thought you were
So
still a crazy running around with that yellow wiffle ball, but that's
yeah,
okay. All right. I got you.
I'm a professional athlete now, so no, but I've been getting up every day at 5 and I drill for 2 hours with my partner. So I'll do that from like 5 to 7 drill, and then we'll play games for an hour or two. Today, I ended up not leaving the gym till like 11:30. I got stuck on the phone with someone for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. But so it depends. But recently, most mornings I'm there. I'd say 2 or 3 nights a week I'll go there for a couple hours also and play rec games with like my wife or something.
All right, that was my second question. How do you get this much time away from the wife? Because I'm here taking notes. You actually have
Yeah,
her with you. All right, that makes
she
sense.
plays. Yeah, I just I'm like, hey, go play with your girlfriend. No, but we actually do play mixed tournaments together. We're actually flying into Vegas next month to play in the Nationals qualifier as a mixed doubles team. So wish me luck there. But yeah, recently it just feels like a lot of pickleball because the golf course is basically closed. I actually just played my first round Friday night. I went out and got out, but it's still pretty cold here. The courses aren't even opening till like 11 or noon because of frost. So pickleball, and then I normally travel a bunch, but I've been home for like a month. But Allie and I don't have kids yet, and we're trying to like do a bunch of cool stuff before we do have kids and get kind of more locked down. So my mom actually was asking me when to plan my sister's baby shower, and I was like, yeah, my next free weekends are April 18th, June 17th, and July 27th. And so I've got a lot going on over the next couple months. I'm going to the PGA Championship. I'm going to a couple pickleball tournaments, like I said, and obviously the mastermind trip I'm super excited about in Florida is going to be badass. So yeah, I mean, that my day to day. I come here after the gym usually till like 4, unless I have something else planned, and then yeah, that's about it.
That's awesome, dude. I'm happy for you because a lot of business owners will never see this and they think it's a lie. We've got a lot of guys and girls in the masterminds group, very similar work-life balances. Business is running itself, but
Mm.
obviously you still got to. There's some things as the CEO or owner. I'm assuming you still have to do. What are the non-negotiables? Whether you're on the road or not on the road, so there's certain things daily, weekly, monthly as the CEO, the visionary, the strategist, that are just non-negotiables for you.
Um, they're there. I would say I meet with my fractional CFO and go over financials with him. I spend a lot of my time just crunching numbers and stuff by myself, but a lot of the main KPIs and stuff are like my leadership team, they pull those numbers for us to meet in the weekly meeting. So, I review the numbers with them, but I don't, the numbers I pull are just numbers I pull for myself. So they don't technically need to be done, but I think it's really, really healthy to do that.
Okay. So two things I want to hit on there real quick, not to cut you off.
No, yeah.
So it sounds like your leadership team, now that they're using this elite methodology, some other things you had in place before the group, that those leadership members are actually taking ownership of those KPIs as key performance indicators. So they're owning those numbers, presenting them, and they're actually responsible for them. And they're presenting to you, just say, hey, here's accountability. We're on track. We're kind of off track, or we're really off track. And I'm assuming then there's some actions taken. But the thing that I'm hearing from you and a lot of the other successful people that we talk to is the business owner is not necessarily owning these certain KPIs. The leadership team is, and they're communicating and keeping you in the loop. And obviously, I'm sure you're there to support them and alleviate any roadblocks. But is that a fair assessment? You're not really running those yourself?
Yeah. We have two like scorecards, if you will. Hey, Josh. So we have like our weekly meetings, our weekly one-on-ones, and they have their big three, which is, an elite term. And they have their 3 KPIs that we talk about in our weekly one-on-ones. And then we have like a more of a scorecard dashboard where they each enter certain numbers for the weekly meeting. And we just kind of quickly graze, what's the word? Look over them, whatever. We quickly look over them before our weekly meeting. So when we go into it, we just kind of react to, hey, our close rate's low. What can we do about that? It's not really just saying like, hey, this number looks good. This number looks okay. This number looks good. And just reading them off. We just kind of pick a couple main ones that need to be addressed and go from there.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes I made, especially creating this process and system and getting it going in the business, not really creating it, but taking it, executing it. Is in the early days, we would go through every number and go through each one and look at it. But really, we're kind of just going through them, like you said. But hey, if there's an issue, we're probably looking at it before the actual leadership meeting, when we're dialing in and trying to solve those issues in lifetime.
Yeah.
So that, I think that's really big, but I think that's been at least the game changer in my businesses, is being able to evolve that leadership team, get a regular rhythm, and then be able to use that LEAP framework to actually dial that in, right down to the annual and quarterly planning, because now the team knows what's ahead of them for the next 12 months. But one of the biggest things, and I'm curious, is one of our 7-figure certified coaches, where you sit knee to knee virtually with a lot of business owners trying to break $1 million or have broken $1 million sometimes and just need to get some of these things in place. The biggest pushback I hear, whether they're a client or not, is why do we need to look at certain numbers on a monthly basis? Like, it's boring. Like, is there any value to that? I'm curious your take. I mean, I've definitely got my own take, and I'll probably share it at some point, whether you want it or not. But I guess that it's a mindset shift, and is something, I guess, that really surprises me. I think as businesses grow, that they're out there doing all the work. As Michael Gerber said, a lot of us are technicians on entrepreneurial seizure. We're great technicians, but no one's really showed us why we need to look at the numbers, what numbers to look at. So I guess, A, what numbers are we looking at, and a scorecard or whatever you're looking at, as you mentioned, and B, how often do you look at those numbers? And if you think it's important, why should we be looking at the same stats month after month or week after week?
I mean, first of all, it's like your heartbeat. You gotta know. As soon as something starts to slip, you can make adjustments before it's too far gone. And some of the main, when we're looking like from a P&L standpoint, the main numbers are obviously overhead, cost of goods sold, and profit, basic numbers. And then the cost of goods sold number means like a lot more than it looks like, because it kind of can tell you it's your labor efficiency or if your pricing's just bad. Every number kind of tells you something. It's like if you go to the doctor and like your blood sugar is high, then they're probably like, okay, well, this is what's happening. And so if we're going to diagnose an issue in your business, we know there's something wrong. If we want to figure out what it is, we need to run the numbers. And just like when you go to a doctor, you have a problem, they run tests on you.
It's kind of cool. It's almost like a baseline, and we need to make sure that baseline is appropriate. If your blood pressure skyrockets, we may have an issue, but otherwise, as long as it's annual checkup or monthly checkup, you're good.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we look at, so there's different numbers that we look at on different consistencies. So like our attrition number, we look at it monthly, and it's not something that I think is worth looking at every single week the way we track it. If you're looking at like a report of canceled clients versus new clients, all that kind of stuff, the way we track it in our spreadsheet, it's a monthly number. Client acquisition cost is huge because that one we look at weekly, because we want to notice if we're starting to have like diminishing returns on marketing plans or whatever. And then like obviously close rate, because your client acquisition cost might be high because your close rate's low if your cost per lead is decent. And then we actually look at close rate by source, so we could see, okay, Facebook's only closing at 18%, but our Facebook leads are only $27, so it costs the same for a Facebook client as it does a Google client at $60 a lead, whatever. Look at the rolling 12 revenue wise. It kind of gives us a snapshot of which direction we're going in, and it helps us project our growth for the year.
If people are unfamiliar, so attrition is your cancellation rate. Some of these terms you may not be familiar with. A rolling 12, would you mind just kind of giving a breakdown? What is a rolling 12, and why are we looking at a rolling 12 and not doing it on just a yearly budget from December, January to December?
Yeah. So rolling 12 is just the past 12 months of revenue. And so when we look at, essentially it tells you, okay, if we pull the rolling 12 for March, it shows us how much more did we do this March than last March. But when you start to track that month over month and start to see percentages of growth on average, you can kind of create projections for the year, and you can see when things are starting to slip or go the wrong way, as opposed to just saying, oh, we are 10 grand short this month compared to last year. It might not seem like a lot, but when you're seeing that percentage drop month over month, you notice you have a problem. So it kind of helps you forecast better than just looking at a monthly revenue. And then because it's telling you, okay, this is essentially what size business you are right now. If you look at your rolling 12 in July, you might have done $1 million last year, but your rolling 12 says 1.5. You know what I mean?
Yep. So. No, it's exactly what I was wondering, because a lot of businesses won't look at it that way, don't even know or have never heard of that term, rolling 12. So I think that was honestly the first time I was introduced to that was, probably 5 or 6 years ago, but was a gentleman, Garrett Matthews, who's also one of our 7-figure business coaches with the masterminds in our Scout group. Garrett's out of Shreveport, Louisiana, with Matthew Tree and Pest. He's actually going to be giving a live monthly webinar to our sub-$1 million group, Scale Plus, later today, to actually know your financial numbers. So I'm sure Garrett's going to bring that up. But being a self-proclaimed numbers geek, I had never really thought of doing a rolling 12. So right to your point, until you get surrounded by people who've done it, been there, you were introduced to those guys and girls at GIE. When I met Jonathan and I met Garrett at the roundtable, and probably more than 6 years ago, but the same idea is these are concepts that I was never aware of until I was introduced to somebody who was using them. So that's kind of the idea of coming out on these Facebook Lives and YouTube, is like literally the mindset of abundance, sharing this knowledge, exposing these concepts and bringing experts in, like yourself. So I know your time is very compressed, so I don't want to hold you hostage too much longer, but in the pre-show talk, we were talking about something called a 9-around. And that was something new that I was introduced to when I met Jonathan first time at a roundtable at the Service Autopilot's first office in a strip mall. But a lot of times people are looking at like, man, I can't hire a Facebook ad agency for $30,000 or $40,000 a year on the low end, plus the ad spend. I really don't know how to do all these other things. With the 9-arounds, when the technicians are obviously doing them. I mean, I can tell you a horror story when we had the town calls, and I had about 300,000 door hangers stuffed in the bottom of a sewer grate, and it backed up the whole entire neighborhood with a flood when it rained. They asked me if I wanted to come down and pick up my flyers from the bottom of the sewer. But they do actually end up on the, and we can get into some ideas at some point how to actually hold accountability. But when they actually do hit the doors, what's the concept of around that 9-around? We used to call it a 12-around. We used to grab a couple extra houses.
Okay.
But I'm curious your approach to that when it actually happens. And sometimes it's hard to hold accountability to those crew members. But when they happen, something magical usually happens, especially if you're on a P4P or piece rate system.
Yeah. So we're on P4P, but we also pay $25 per converted lead for the guys. So we're like, hey, just put the door hanger on. Takes you 2 seconds. And if they sign up, we give you $25. It's like an hour of your work, basically. But we do 2 door hangers. So we do one on the door of the client, when we fertilize their lawn. And we don't do like some other people where we put the information of the application and how many pounds and all that. That goes into an SA form that gets emailed to the client. We've been trying to do like a client journey door hanger. And so we created, I don't know if I have anything here. Here's something like we were working on. This is like one of our early stages of it, but it's kind of like it was supposed to be like a what's that game? Candyland, like
Yeah,
a game board.
a little
And it
shoots and
starts,
ladders, maybe.
yeah, and it starts with like the beginning of the season, and then half of it's like what are we doing throughout the year and what's happening in the environment or whatever throughout the year, Mother Nature. Talk about the stages of your grass and why it's starting to look, you know, a little bit yellower in the summer and that kind of stuff. And so we designed this for the back of a door hanger that we put on our client's door, and says, yeah, here you are right now. There's an X on this spot on the map, and this is, you know, round 4. So you're going to have some potential dormancy if you're not watering your lawn. You might see it to yellow up a little bit. It doesn't mean it's burned or dying. It just means you need to water it. That kind of stuff. And then on the flip side of it, we do a marketing material. So it might say, like right now we're doing round 1. And so on the back of the round 1 door hanger, it talks about liquid aeration. And hey, if you're not, you know, on a program, on our lawn domination program right now, you know, get 10% off your liquid aeration, blah, blah, blah. And then our 9 rounds, which, you know, the concept of them is, okay, those people saw us there. Like if they were home, which most people are these days working from home, they've seen our trucks, they see our little sign in the yard that we just fertilized. And the door hanger, which I don't have one with me here, says like, hey, your neighbor chose us, you should too. Has like, you know, a little bit about how we're locally owned and 5-star reviews and ironclad guarantee, all that kind of stuff. And then it has a little section that the tech writes their name on it, and then it has a little QR code for simple estimate.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something. So this is exposure. If no one's seen this speaker or book, but I'm sure, Alec, you have at some of the SA conferences with the book They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan.
Yep.
It sounds like you got a little Marcus Sheridan going on and some of that, or that Dan Kennedy long script marketing. But you talked about that ironclad guarantee and talking about some of the questions your consumer or future consumers may have regarding, hey, the lawn's a little yellow right now, or what happens if this happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, and I love to see that you're going out and executing this, that you're going out and answering the questions that you know the consumer is going to have, in framing yourself and reaffirming that you're the expert and providing an additional value or perceived value to your service there.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen the ability to go out and proactively market as the expert, give you any ability to go out and charge a higher price? It's not, I feel like looking at your service, it's really not based on price.
We are probably the highest in our market. Yeah. And a lot of this, you know, property journey thing, it is for retention, right? It's like, if they look at us as a price tag, they're going to pick someone else. Like you were saying, we're higher priced and we're the experts. Like if you drive down my street, you could see which lawns are Turf King's lawns, right? And a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people will get frustrated and they don't express themselves to you. Like they see their lawn, they're not happy with it, but they're afraid of confrontation, so they're not going to call you and ask you to fix it or anything like that. They're just going to cancel and go find someone else. And so if we're able to get in front of it and tell them, hey, this is something you're experiencing right now, and hey, we have a full guarantee, like we know we're the best. And like most of us, if we treat a lawn and there's still weeds in the yard, we're going to go back and treat it for free anyway. So why not market that?
Love it. Yeah, that's a key. Like if you're going to do it anyways, you might as well be different. Put your face on it. Put a guarantee on it. And that's how we get away from literally being a price sensitive or price driven product. And that you're obviously have been watching from afar, executing this like just flawlessly. But if you're watching this, you think you're going into the spring and people are price sensitive. To be honest, as long as you're in the ballpark, you're good. As long as you're communicating, you're hitting the pain points. And the biggest thing that I'm seeing right now, and I've got a feeling with your fully off, like staffed office staff, speed wins, or as Garrett would like to space, the lack of speed kills. If you're picking the phone up or you've got an automated estimating tool that's live on demand, people are just walking down and like wherever they get the first price, if it's within reason and they know, like, and trust you, they're going to sign up. And I think that obviously has been the key to a lot of success of the folks we've interviewed on here. As we're wrapping it up here, Alec, is there we'll see a commonality, especially with our coaching division and a lot of the folks that you work with, especially in the masterminds group with the elite methodology that we used in my business. But traditionally, we drive everything down to like 3 things, 4 or 5 things, probably too many, 1 or 2, maybe not enough to move the needle. But I kind of put you on the spot here. If there was only 3 things, if you were to tell a lawn care business for the next quarter, the spring, that they should concentrate or do, whether it's looking at the numbers, marketing, go out and mentally fire your whole entire staff and see if it actually rehire them. That was kind of an exercise we did last time. What were those 3? And why? I'll give you a second to think about that. I want to give a big shout out to Cody Owen of Lightspeed Social Agencies joining us here as well. One of our guest hosts and speaker in our Dallas, Texas event. So Cody just slated. But Alec, what were the top 3 things if you were to tell somebody here coming up to the spring rush that if you could only do 3 things, what would allow you to be a successful lawn care company and not be hostage to your business and have to be the only person doing it, driving the objectives?
Yeah, I think it really depends on who we're talking to, right? At a lower level, I'm like, you need to set aside time to work on your business every week. I think that's like huge, that a lot of smaller companies don't do that. And I will say, even some of the bigger companies, you'd be surprised, are kind of a disaster. So the second thing would be just knowing your numbers and figuring out what they are and what they mean. And then because it's spring, I would say client acquisition. I mean, once you know your numbers and you've got your business kind of dialed, you don't want to fuel a leaky rocket, so to speak. But once you know your numbers and you know that you're profitable and your pricing is good, like sales and marketing, I mean, I've talked to Garrett Matthews about it 100 times. Like sales and marketing is the biggest thing that is going to get you to the next level. And that's pretty obvious because you have to have the clients to get there. But like, it's one of the hardest things to dial in because it's always changing. Like how you cut grass doesn't generally change very much. You might get into robotic mowers one day, but before I was in the industry, you guys didn't even have like Facebook and Google ads, right? You're just doing paper. I don't even know how you did that.
We didn't even have YouTube, so we had to figure it out ourselves. And you'd be asking the guy down the street who doesn't know his numbers, like, "Hey, Bill, what should we be doing?" And Bill had no idea, but he's like, "Man, I've been doing this shit for years. I've been bumping on this lawnmower so long I got hemorrhoids." I'm sorry to watch you picking at because it's a true story about Bill, one of our subcontractors. Bill didn't want to get off the truck, and we ended up with some bad hemorrhoids being on that mower too long. So don't want to do that.
Well, I mean, sales and marketing, it's just constantly changing. And, like even within the last 2 years, TikTok became a thing. And I know some of the guys that I know are doing pretty big things on TikTok and we're not. And I don't know if it's been a massive lead generation tool for them, but the point is things are changing over time. And so dialing in sales and marketing and just bringing some people in that know what they're doing and helping you get great at that would be one of the biggest things, especially if you're a big company and you can afford to do it in-house and just have someone who focuses on your marketing 40 hours a week. That's got to be one of the number one things, especially in the spring with, you're trying to get, now is when you're selling, right? So if you don't have a good selling season this spring, you're basically waiting till next year, depending on what your services are.
Yeah, for sure. Couldn't agree with you more. I mean, and that really, it almost aligns with the 6 steps of business that we teach and kind of created right here at SimpleGrowth. But I mean, you now that like literally getting your time management was number 1, like get that calendar in order. Number 2 kind of wraps into knowing your numbers, get those finances in order, separate the business from your personal, make sure you're putting some cash there. Number 3, I think is really, you've nailed it in all your businesses. Just create a simple business with simple product offerings that can be delegated. Hiring those A players to go out and do the work. And then your last piece you hit on is literally client acquisition. Going out. And then when you get that all dialed in, next part's leadership. We hit on that kind of with the elite methodology, but going in and getting clear and not only becoming the leader that you need to be, but literally building the leadership team with leadership skills that you need. And Alex got a perfect example of this because he is continuing to invest in his team, upgrading not only his leadership skills, but the folks in his office. And as he continues to upgrade them, Portia's like, dude, the hell out of the office. We got this. We'll play some pickleball. So, dude, congratulations on the success, man. It's been really fun to watch. Just a young cat, just killing it in the industry. I appreciate what you're doing for the Simple Growth clients. If anybody watching is interested to learn more how to hang out with a coach like Alec knee to knee virtually, or if you're interested in checking out the Simple Growth Masterminds, our next live event is May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in Merritt Island, Florida, right on the island there, right where the Johnson Space Center is. So I know we've got a lot of members that are hanging out for a day or two afterwards with their kids to check out the Space Center. Andrea, my assistant, has put together a hell of an event, live shop tour at Bluebell Landscape. A lot of huge keynotes. We got a 4-hour session with Jim Houston to literally go over, review, and build a budget out. Know your hourly rates and break evens if you don't know that. If you do, we're going to reaffirm it. Riley Potoshnik's going to be coming in there. Drew Larison. We got a bunch of other heavy hitters, including Jeff Dominic, the owner of KeyServe, an acquisition company that we worked personally to build out a lot of job costing automations. But we did the shop tour last May over at Della Casa.
Yeah.
First acquisition. Second acquisition is Bluebell. So I'm really excited. And Jeff's going to be coming in and dropping some knowledge about what you need to do to build your business as, you said, an asset. If you're looking to sell it, and if you're not, what you should be doing to put it in as an asset to make it a profit center and potentially a lifestyle business. So, Alec, can't thank you enough, brother. I appreciate it. Anybody's interested in that trip, SGS Call. Not everybody qualifies, but you can book a time at SGS Call to see. And we're going to be coming back at you pretty much every Wednesday now, right around this time, with industry, national level leaders in the lawn care industry. And I couldn't think of a better person to start it out with than Alec Overett. So appreciate it, brother.
Thanks, Mike.
We'll see you guys later.